Cool. Yeah.
Today, Phil Shouse joins us here at the Rock House, and Phil is just an amazing guitarist currently in the band Accepts. However, he has played every rock star's dream in being in Gene Simmons and Ace Frehley's solo bands as well. Phil, welcome to the Rock House. How are you today?
Good, Jock. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, thank you. You're based in Nashville at the moment. How's life in Nashville going?
That's right. Oh, it's good. It's good. I'm not here very much, which is fine. I don't really have too much to do here when I'm home. So the more I can be out on the road, the better.
Awesome. Mate, Nashville is just filled with rock and metal stars these days. What was the big turnaround in Nashville?
Actually, Wolf Hoffman was one of the first ones to move to Nashville, way back in the early 90s.
Wow.
Um, and so, yeah, he's been here since then. And, I'm not sure what it was, but it seems like around, like, I've been here since 2004. And around that time, more things started to come in. Nashville began to be more of an entertainment town
Yeah,
and
okay.
more of a music town than just country music town. Country's always going to rule here because of just of history, I guess. But
Definitely.
um, yeah, it became broader, and now, man, you can't shake a stick without having seeing some like rock or metal guy walking down the street. So
It sounds like my town, mate. I need to come over, I think.
come, I'll trade you.
Yeah, yeah.
We'll do that.
Okay, done deal. But you haven't always been in Asheville. You actually was in high school in Alabama. What were your fondest memories from Alabama? And is Alabama a big rock town as well?
Uh, Actually, it's the area of Alabama I lived in. I lived in Decatur, and it's northern Alabama.
Yeah.
There is a rich musical history in that part of Alabama. It was about 45 minutes east of Muscle Shoals, and Muscle Shoals and soul and R&B and rock and funk are completely intertwined. So
Mm.
many great records were cut in Muscle Shoals. Um, Greg and Dwayne Allman went to high school in Decatur, Alabama for a year, and they actually formed one of their first bands. Hourglass was formed with Johnny Sandlin in Decatur, Alabama, and Johnny Sandlin went on to start Capricorn Records, which is the Allman's
Yeah,
label.
yeah.
So yeah, there's a bunch of history where where I'm kind of from.
So, growing up in Alabama, what was your earliest musical memory? Was it the Allman Brothers or?
No, I moved to Alabama when I was almost 13.
Yeah,
And I just picked up playing guitar. We moved there from Nebraska, which is, dead
yeah,
center of the United States. Not
yeah.
much going on there. And I was born in Wisconsin. First musical memory would be in Wisconsin. This is I was like, pre 5 years old. And my brother Kevin was a drummer in a polka band because it was
Welcome.
Wisconsin,
Yeah,
and lots of Germans and Scandinavians there,
yeah.
so polka bands like could do well. And so he played drums, and the band practiced at our house. And not only I remember the band practicing and him playing drums and the drum set being in the basement and just being around it was also his record collection, and that is solely how I got into music. Period. Was thumbing through his records on the in record crates. That's totally how I got into all this.
So, what were some of the records you pulled out of those crates, Phil?
Aerosmith, and I'm not sure if it was just because they were A and it was alphabetical order, right? And it might have been like, well, that's cool. But I also really remembered I really liked uh, Toys in the Attic, Rocks, and Draw the Line. And for the music, but I think something about the album covers drew me in too, just because I'm probably 3 years old at this point, digging through these things, and so I'm looking at what's attractive to me visually, and I was just like, Draw the Line's a cartoon, so
It
that
is.
probably was one.
Yeah.
But and then the records. He'd put the records on for me, and I'd even get sat on the drum stool
Oh,
and could
no.
bash along with that. And yeah, Aerosmith was the first thing I remember really like latching onto.
Yeah. Okay. So you're bashing the drums at that point in time. What then drew you to the guitar?
A picture of Joe Perry. It wasn't even really the sound of the guitar; it was a photograph. Because Joe
Yeah.
Perry still is the coolest guitar player to ever play guitar.
What what
He
what
looks amazing.
inspiration? You couldn't get a better inspiration as a young 3-year-old to look at a picture of Joe Perry and go,
Exactly, I was
"That's
fucked.
uber cool, uber cool."
Yeah, he was just the coolest, and so that was my first thing. And then the next big thing was the Blues Brothers movie soundtrack.
You know
That
what? I've
totally
never
turned me.
never seen that movie.
Oh my god, it is one thing that did not get dated. It's still as good now as it was in
Uh,
'80 when it was released. It's unbelievable. And I remember going to see the movie. I was 5,
yeah,
and it was rated R. I remember going to a drive-in to see it, and I've seen it since then. And my parents back then were a little bit strict on me, and I was very surprised they took me to see that. But what's funny is that I don't remember any of like language or anything like that at all. I didn't. All I loved about that movie was the music and the guys in the band. I thought were so cool. So I got the soundtrack, and Blue Lou Marini, the tenor sax player in that band,
yeah.
is why I went on to play saxophone in school band. I played sax all through school and college, and he's why that guy. So I was very visually impressionable as a kid. Like if you look cool, that was it. That's all I needed.
All
That's
right.
all I needed.
Check out the Sax Player and Blues Brothers movie. Then I'm determined to watch it then within the next week, and I'll drop you a note to give you my impressions of the movie.
It's fantastic. You'll
You
love
know,
it. I guarantee it.
your parents are taking you to the Blues Brothers. My parents took me to Amityville Horror, so I think that's really defined what my career
Nice.
is.
I
Anyway,
could not. They would not have taken me to see that one. Not,
yeah.
not at all.
All right, there's a difference. Mum and Dad, you should have taken me to the Blues Brothers. It would have been a different career.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you moved to Nashville in '04. One of your first bands there was a covers band, I believe, called The Taste. Is that right?
Yeah, it was the Taste, and it wasn't Rory Gallagher Taste. We knew about that band, but it wasn't that one. Obviously, it was actually an original band, um,
Oh, okay.
and it was actually most of what I've done has been covers since right after that. So that was kind of one of the last things I did original. But yeah, it was a friend Clint was singing, and I kind of was living in North Alabama, driving back and forth to Nashville. It was only 2 hour drive, so it was easy to go back and forth. But so I was in the Taste, and then I got in another band, um, and then so I was spending way more time in Nashville than I was in Alabama, and it was kind of time to move then.
Yeah, yeah. At this point as well, you probably diversed a little bit as well and auditioned for David Lee Murphy. David Lee Murphy is one of country rock's biggest stars, I'd say, over at Nashville. How was that experience?
It was great. He was the best first kind of boss to have in that kind of world. He was absolutely awesome. Because I didn't have to really change my style that much. Because right around that
Yeah,
time, country artists were looking for more like a Leonard Skinner Southern rock
yeah,
lead guitar player, which is completely my wheelhouse. And so I wasn't had to like learn any like chicken picking Telecaster things. It was like no, dress like that, play like that, and bus call is it 10 o'clock, whatever. So it was I moved up at a good time, and I had really good people that I played with and played for that were very encouraging to me, and never were hey man, no, it's a little bit too rock and roll for it. They were all about it.
yeah. It's interesting because you look at country and you think that is so far different to metal and rock. But you said you didn't have to change your style that much.
Not any. Actually, now it's even more the same than it was in
Well, true.
'05 when I started playing.
Yeah,
In 2005, it was still kind of very, it was getting to the point. It was very Leonard Skinner. So I fit in very well. And then I had a couple more gigs with some people, and it was the same kind of thing. And I look at what's happened now, and it's like we sounded like Merle Haggard,
Yeah.
compared to what's going on now. It's just it's I don't know what you'd call it now. It's a big mishmash of rock, 80s power ballads and rap and
Yeah.
everything.
It's
It's
almost a
so
hybrid now
different.
of what it was, right?
It
Yeah.
is. It is.
You've also played in some pretty big tribute bands. Probably the one I'm interested in is Blonder Than Hell. What was Blonder Than Hell all about?
Blonder Than Hell was annual band. It was once a year,
Yeah,
and around Christmas time, uh, me, Jeremy Asbrock, Christopher Williams from Accept,
except yeah.
and E.T. Brown. We were just four. This is back in like 2011, like, so way before any of the kind of Gene stuff happened. So it was way back. We were just four completely obsessed Kiss fans that had never done a Kiss band before and wanted to do one. And we did have a little bit of fun. We kept some humor in it, but we just did one gig a year in Nashville, and it was a toy drive and a food drive and all that. But yeah, and we'd put on a 3 hour Kiss show and play 20, 25 songs and wear ourselves out. And that's where we kind of started playing the really deep cuts that they didn't play. We focused on that, and by the time we stopped doing it, it was a huge ticket in Nashville. We were selling out the club that we played, and we'd have 4 carloads of food and toys to take to the
Wow,
mission. So yeah,
that's awesome.
it was fun. It was fun. It just got weird we did one gig after we got the gig with Gene. Then once we got the Ace gig too, it was kind of weird, so we just quit doing it.
Foreigner is also another tribute band, which is fun to you. Mate, I'm a huge Foreigner fan, so I would have loved to have seen that. What inspired you to start the old Foreigner tribute band?
Oh man, that was it was I was asked to do that one too.
Yeah,
And they had a guy that sang just like Blue Graham, this guy named Matt Newton. He was amazing. I did a couple gigs with them. It was pretty short lived. I got busy doing other stuff, and I was always kind of like I'd have a gig or two, and then I would always be doing stuff on my off weekends. And I was a workhorse back then. Not so much now. I'm more selective.
and also a Wings tribute as well, I
Oh
believe.
yeah, yeah. The McCartney Wings thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's my friend Mike Vargo is a really good Paul McCartney. He's actually a right-handed guy that learned lefty for
Wow.
the gig. And so he's a really good McCartney. He plays McCartney in a couple Beatles bands, actually.
Okay.
So those gigs with him, it's a career spanning thing, Wings, solo, Beatles, everything. And those are, that's my, the Beatles are my favorite thing in the universe. Um, and so like those are shows are so much fun to play. So anytime I'm available to do one of those with Mike, I jump at the chance.
That's awesome. So the Beatles, mate, they have just inspired countless of musicians, haven't they? They were just before their time, really.
Really, they were dropped from the future. It's
Yeah.
like when you look at the state of show business and entertainment and music and bands back then, it was just like these guys showed up out of like from the future. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And I got into them when I was 11 in '86, and then it's just grown, since then. My obsession for them and my love of all things Beatles has grown
Awesome.
exponentially for the past 30 some odd years.
Yeah, that's great. The biggest thing from Nashville, though, that you're probably best known for is the Rock N Roll Residency. What's the Rock N Roll Residency all about?
The Rock and Roll Residency started in 2014. Jeremy Asbrock and I started that, and at this point, we'd done some of the Kiss shows that we'd done, the Bond and Hell shows, I mean, and we'd also done some more tribute shows and cover shows. So we had pretty big catalog of tunes that we knew. And by this point, Nashville was getting more populated with rock and roll people. And so we'd actually knew some of the people that helped write the songs that we knew. And they were our friends. So we're like, what if we did a show for a month It was more Jeremy's idea.
Yeah.
We do a show for a month at one place, like 4 shows or 5 shows in a month, and we do all these tunes that we know. We get our friends to come sing them and play them with us. Like that's great. So it went for the month, and it was hugely successful. So like, let's just do the summer. So we did the summer, and then Chuck Garrick, who was our first bass player, Chuck from Alice's band, Chuck had worked it out totally by himself where Alice was going to come to the residency. And that was the very first like big star that we had there. And then after that, it was like, well, we're not stopping this now. So it went on for 5 years regularly.
Wow.
Either it was once a week, it was every Tuesday. But if we were until we started getting busy, and then we started doing shows, whenever we could, and then it was just entirely just too much, and way too much. But yeah, the pace that we kept for that long, um, and then it ended up being me, Jeremy, and it was Judd Fuller and Jared Pope, and Jared is in Tom Kiefer's band, and also in Brother Kane now with Damon Johnson, and Judd's with Maggie Rose. Judd was the bass player with me in my last country gig that I did, and that was an incredible band. We could play anything and make it sound authentic, and that was the coolest thing I thought, because we really focused on 60s and 70s and early some 80s stuff that we did not much though, but we really focused on like 70s hard rock, not the songs that you would, not radio hits.
Yeah.
And so we would go from, in the same set back to back, we would do Wrathchild by Iron Maiden, and then
Maiden.
we'd do Love Is Alive by Gary Wright.
Wow.
And it just changed gears like that, and it was everything, and it sounded real and it sounded authentic, and we could do that with anything. And that was a great band. Like, it's after we played so much together, I played more with those guys than probably any other band, just because of we played every single week, and we were learning new songs every week, and it wasn't any specific genre, it was a time period. Like,
Yeah.
okay, we're gonna do this, and we do Ike and Tina Turner, and we do what else? We do all those kinds of things. Robin Trower, it's Status Quo, um, Gary Wright, and then do stories. It was a blast, man. It was when we were like really cooking. That became like the thing to do on a Tuesday in Nashville. It's like that was where you were, um, and it just people latched onto it, and it became like the coolest place to hang out. It was those are fun times.
I didn't waste my time in Australia. I should have been over there watching some of you and your mates playing Rock N Roll Residency. It sounds like a great time. But you mentioned some of your friends played in the band, and it was almost a rotating roster. You mentioned Chuck Garrick was your first bass player. John Corabi was in there for a while too. Is that?
Yeah. Whenever John was a guest, and whenever he was back, he would come through and sing. Damon Johnson, Nashville guy, Rachel Bolan from Skid Row's a Nashville guy. He'd come by and play. But then we'd get to the point where we were, visiting musicians would come in. We had Robin Zander come and do for 2 weeks. He came down with Dax from Cheap Trick.
Yeah.
We had Roger Glover and Don Airey from Deep Purple come down and played for 2 weeks in a row. We had Roger Fisher from Heart come down and play. Gene played a couple tunes.
Gene did. Wow.
Derek St. Holmes from Ted Nugent's band. He's a friend. Lives in Nashville. He came all the time. Lizzie and Joe from Hellstorm were there every week, whether they were singing or not. They were just hanging out, and it became like this really cool hang. And you'd, plus you might see a Rock and Roll Hall of Famer. You never knew what was going to happen. Really, it was a lot of fun, a lot of surprises.
And they're the best gigs, right? The surprises.
Yeah. It was fun. We kind of knew what was going to happen, but then Robin Zander would show up at the end of the night. We're like, oh, okay, well, what do you want to do? Let's do Long Way to the Top. Sounds great. We'll do Long Way to the Top.
This must have been you're a big music fan like myself, but this must have been like almost a dream for you, with this rotating
That
cast of superstars coming in.
it really was, and it was great because we had the band that we knew that could back up anybody. And it wasn't going to be like the singer came through and or somebody was like, yeah, but those guys were terrible. It's like, no, we were a shit hot band and we knew it. And with that kind of confidence, and we're like, oh yeah, we can do that. What we knew so many tunes at that point. We're like, what do you want to do? Dead Flowers? Okay, cool, Robin Zander, we'll do Dead Flowers. We know Dead Flowers, and so we just had all these things in our pocket that we could go, oh yeah, yeah, I know that. Watch me. It was a great band, and that's what you kind of need to do when you're having that kind of caliber people come in and sing with you, and
Yeah.
and they would always leave going, man, those guys, those guys are great, which always would feel really good,
And makes them want to come back as well, right?
Robin came the next week instead of the Deep Purple guys. They both came. They came 2 weeks in a row, so it was fun.
Around this time, you also met another friend of the Rock House in Ryan Stanley Cook. How did you come across Ryan?
Ryan was Ryan. So Ryan called me because an artist that I had worked with, Bo Bice, was at the label where Ryan was like running their publishing.
Yeah.
And Ryan had a band called Big Rock Show, and they
Show.
were going to be on the first. They were going to be on the first Kiss cruise. And so he asked Bo. He goes, "I need a guitar player for this band." And Bo's like, "Phil, you got to call Phil Shouse. Call Phil Shouse." So Ryan called me and told me, and I was absolutely crushed, but I couldn't do it because I had just got a gig with a country guy, Rodney Atkins, and it was a steady gig. He was a big guy, and we were, every weekend out, and it was a good gig. And I go, I can't do it, but the guy that should do this tour and do the cruise and be in your band lives in my house, and it was Jeremy Asbrot. And I said, so you should come over and hang out, meet Jeremy. So he came over to the house one night, and it was Jack Daniels and Van Halen, and we've all three been fast friends ever since. And Jeremy got the gig in Big Rock Show and did the Kiss cruise.
Oh, that's awesome, Jeremy. You owe Phil big time. But fast forward a little bit, you were enlisted in Gene Simmons' solo band as well, with the help of Ryan. Is that right?
That's exactly. Ryan Cook is the sole reason that Jeremy and I got into the Gene Simmons band. Gene knew Ryan. Ryan knew the Doc McGee and that kind of circle more than we did.
Yeah.
He had kind of been around him for several years. So he went on another one of the Kiss cruises and had lunch with Gene. And Gene had 5 solo shows coming up the following year. So the meeting happened in 2016. The shows were going to be in 2017. So he met with Ryan because he knew Ryan knew a lot of like rock musicians and could put together a band that could do that kind of a thing. So Ryan's like, yeah, I got the guys already. And Gene didn't know who the hell we were at all. He just told Ryan, it's like, I don't care who you get, what they look like, whatever, just get them. And then Ryan put the band together. And 5 shows turned into 2 years of international work.
Wow. What were those first 5 shows like?
It was great. The first one we were doing was like a corporate gig in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. And it wasn't a lot of Kiss fans. It was like one of those like executive conventions where you have a lot of speakers, and Gene was the keynote speaker. And so we played for that. And then the next gig was in Cleveland. And that was going to be like in front of Kiss fans. And that was where we got all the obscure tunes. We started putting those in the set, and we blew up the internet that night. People could not believe it. And then after that show, promoters started calling, like to book more shows. So it quickly turned into more than just the 5. But it was great. Gene absolutely could not have been cooler, and better to work with, and more of a pleasure just to be around because we were with him all the time. we traveled together. There was no crew. It was the five of us. And we traveled
Wow.
together. We ate breakfast in the hotel together. We rode to the venue together. We ate catering at the venue together. We were with him all the time. And he absolutely could not have been any better. He was amazing.
He comes across as this bigger than life personality. Behind closed doors, is he different?
He's it's funny because he combines that. He's bigger than life, and he just is, because we're already Kiss fans, and he's
Yeah.
But then he's the best guy to have a conversation with. He's the biggest star I've ever been around. Just nobody bigger than him. But he's the easiest person to have a conversation with. He listens to you and has good things to say. He knows a little bit about everything. I mean, he really does. He's extremely intelligent. Loves to talk, loves to tell stories, loves to hang. And he was extremely humble and extremely self-deprecating. His sense of humor, he takes the piss out of himself all the time. And he's really one of the main thing I took away from my time with Gene was I never heard him complain one time.
Is that right?
And that was really left an impression. Never one, not even close. Not even close. Not like, oh, these meet and greets. We're like, oh God, we got to do what now? How long is this flight? Never. Not one time.
That's amazing. And that's why
he's extremely grateful for his life and the life that he made. I mean, he made his life for himself, and he's I don't know. He's a really good guy. He became a bigger hero of mine than after I worked with him, for sure. Even bigger.
Yeah. We could all learn something from that. I mean, that's amazing to hear. And something minor happens and it ruins our next 2 hours. But for such a huge megastar like Gene, wouldn't even worry him.
He was good. He was really great. It was refreshing to see that. We didn't know what we were going to get, so it was good. It was a good time.
Yeah. The 2-year tour did bring you to Australia at some time. What's your fondest memories from that time in Australia?
It did. That was the Ace and Gene tour. So that was when we played both sets. Ace played, we played that. We'd go off and maybe change shirts, come back and play Gene's set. That was just amazing. That was my first time to Australia, and still didn't get to see anything. Haven't been able to see anything. Still, we've done the 4 cities and flew boom, 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 boom.
Yeah,
4 in a row. So it's rather quick, but no, we loved it. One of the best shows I've ever played or ever been a part of was at the Enmore Theatre in Sydney. That was the second, I think it was the second show, or second or third show of the Australian tour. And we were just a freight train. I mean, the songs were playing themselves. And that was a beautiful theater, packed to the gills. It was totally sold out. And man, that was a special night. But all those shows were a lot of fun just because of it was such a historical event, having both those guys together. And it was great for us. I mean, it was because that tour we had Christopher Williams on drums. And so, we're doing both. We're playing with half Kiss, half of Kiss. And we're both, we're all 4 complete obsessed fans, and we're just looking at each other going, this is insane. Will you look at this? This is crazy.
It'd have to be the Plainsboro of We're Not Worthy.
It was really, it was like that. And just kind of, walking through airports behind those 2 guys, and sitting in a lounge with those 2 guys at an airport lounge. It was just, totally surreal. Totally surreal.
Look, again, the media portrays those 2 of having a fractured relationship. What was it like having them both on tour? Was it as fractured as what we're led to believe?
They were great, and there's a lot of love there between those 2, because when they would share rooms back in 74, pre-Alive days, when they bunked rooms, Gene and Ace were roommates. So there's a lot of love there. And I'm not even going to start to get into 50 years of band politics and all that stuff. But there's a lot of water under the bridge. Probably a lot of water still to be
Yeah,
coming up for those guys.
yep.
But I have no idea. But man, they were great together. They'd ride together to meet and greets, and Gene would bring Ace. Gene was doing a lot of promo for the Vault, for the Gene
Yeah.
Simmons Vault box set that he had. So he would bring Ace along with that stuff. He's like, no, come on. He's like, do autographs and sell them and do stuff. So Gene was very, he was very pro Ace on that tour, and it was cool to see him together hanging out. It was just who gets to see that stuff? And just in a backstage, just hanging out, talking and drinking cokes and whatever. It was a lot of fun.
And in the meantime, the four of you are just sitting back going, wow, this is just a crazy dream. Pinch me.
Yeah, just taking it in as much as you can. With moments like that, they're not going to last forever. So you just try to take them all in.
Awesome. You actually played bass though, didn't you, in Ace's band?
Yep, I played bass in Ace's band because we all three played guitar with Gene. Gene played bass. So when we got the Ace opportunity, the Ace gig, it was like 4 guitar players. I'll do it. I'll play bass. I'm really glad I did. I love playing bass. I really made me better. Whenever you pick up something like that, makes you a better musician and better at the instruments that you're already kind of proficient at. So I'm really glad I played bass. I mean, I did what my hero did. I did a Paul McCartney because Paul's like, I'll do it. I'll play bass.
Yeah.
So I was kind of following his lead.
Out of the 3 instruments that I know that you play, the sax, the guitar, the bass, what's your favorite?
God, saxophone. I don't have the lung capacity for that anymore. A lot's happened in a lot of years. Lots of smoke and things like that. Yeah, exactly. I mean, guitar is really, really great. The Accept shows are extremely challenging to play. It's like, you got to be on and it never lets up. Playing bass is still a lot of fun for me because it's still new, and I'm always trying to find different things to add in to lock in more with the with the drummer and tie it into the trying to bring Roger Glover. I'm going to name drop. Roger Glover told me a really funny thing about being the bass player. Yep. He said the bass player is the connection between the musicians and the drummer. So that's like what I try to just tie those two things together as best I can. So it's still new and exciting for me on bass.
Mate, being new to the world of bass playing, I've got a good musical or bass instructor for you, a guy by the name of Martin Motnick. I'll hook you two up later.
Please do. I'm always looking for a good one. Please do.
Awesome. Speaking of Martin, co-band member from Accept. Let's move on to Accept before I do any more bad jokes. In 2019, you and Martin joined Wolf Hoffman's Symphonic Terror Orchestra. Tell me your fondest experiences from that. I mean, that must have been massive for all of the Accept fans.
That was awesome, and it was my first time doing a tour with Wolf. I wasn't a full-on member of Accept yet, but
yeah,
it was my first time doing one of these, and just playing with a symphony behind you like that. It really took me back to my days in concert band because I played saxophone as a wind instrument in concert band and symphonic band. That was my high school life. I was every single day before school, during school, after school was that for me. So it was like stepping up, with a stringed instrument this time in front. It was a lot of fun. It's a lot of power when you're playing that kind of music, when you're playing more metal type stuff, and even classical pieces arranged for metal band with symphony. It's just so powerful, and it was so cool getting to know some of the musicians, and it was just a really exciting experience. I might not ever do that again. So that was a great experience.
Yeah,
we played 2 shows at this theater in Bulgaria. It was built in 90 AD.
Oh, wow.
It was a Roman amphitheater that had been excavated in the 1960s. I think they found it. And so we did two shows there, and just things like that were um, really special, you know.
Just walking into that historical atmosphere must have given you goosebumps as it was, without even starting playing.
Yeah, it was. We kind of were there for a couple days. It was two shows there, so we were in. It was in Plovdiv, Bulgaria, which I learned was the ancient Roman city of Philippopolis.
Is that right?
So, yeah, so that was. I had no idea. And I was like, I was walking around town. We always had some time to walk around, and I was like, "What? Would you look at that? Even spelled like mine with one L too." So that was kind of
I'll have to do some
cool.
research. That sounds like an interesting story.
Yeah, but it was a lot of fun. I love the travel still, and the cool thing with Accept is 95% of our shows are outside of America, and so I love that aspect of it. We just got back from 3 months in Europe, and I stayed the whole time and had a ball. And we had long breaks. I'd book my own tour, book my own trips, and go on my own. I love that. I'm most at home doing that stuff.
Yeah. So you have joined the modern day version, except in my mind, it's the classic lineup. You've got Wolf Hoffman, Mark Turillo on vocals, Uwe Lullis, Chris Williams, Martin Motnick, and yourself. How did you get invited into the fold? Was it after the
After
Yeah.
Right, yeah. It was after the Sinfonia tour. That was 6 weeks total. And after the tour was over, Wolf asked me if I wanted to join as a member. I was like, I was kind of hoping you were going to ask me to go to the dance with you. So it was good. And then he said, I'm like, well, what are we going to do? And he goes, we're just going to add you 3 guitars. And I'm like, I have experience with 3 guitars. I can help make this work. So yeah, so it was cool. And then it was only because that was 19, then we had a couple of years off, didn't we? And so we only really had the chance to work out all the 3 guitar arrangements before this European tour. So Uwe got to fly over finally, and it was the three of us sitting in a circle with, flying V on our leg, going, all right, you'll try that. Okay, you're playing that. I'll play that here. So we really microscoped everything. So we really only got to get that stuff down, this year. And it's incredible. The 3 guitar attack, the 6-pack thing sounds massive.
It really works well. And probably the record Too Mean to Die, which come out. Undertaker, my personal favourite off that, and Not My Problem. A great statement for the world these days. But the record itself, I was listening to it on vinyl last night, and just the sound that come out of that record is unbelievable. You've started touring. With Accept, you've done a lot of the European festivals. What was the reaction to the 3 guitars over there in Europe?
It was great. I think everybody was excited to be back out at festivals. People were just, It was such a good thing to be back over there and to do things again. We had a great response, because the first response everybody says is, why do you need 3? It's like, when you go to see a symphony, there's like 6 violins, right?
Yep.
You don't sit there and go, why do you need 6 violins? They're all doing something different. And the guitar is a stringed instrument, right? And if you look at it like that, and you're like, okay, well, cool. We can really make this happen. We can really make this hot now. And especially, we can go back to the records and use those arrangements. Because there's never just 2 guitar tracks on a record. There's at least 3 or 4 or 5 sometimes.
That's right.
So now we can replicate all that stuff live. And people seem to really like it. I'd go watch footage afterwards, and the band was on fire. And our front of house guy, Ollie, was so great, and he had it dialed in. You could hear the 3 of us. And so it was really good. It's not like Wolf soloing and Uwe and I are playing the same rhythm part. It's not like that at all. It's like we're all, we play the same thing when it's needed, and then we all spread apart and we do different things. And it's more, orchestral. in our approach, which fits Accept's approach to music. Accept's always had that kind of orchestral element to it.
Well, you have fit into the band quite well. As I mentioned just before you got on, Rock Blast have just released a full live gig on YouTube. Mate, you took center stage. Paul Wolf couldn't even get any camera with you in the way. So you're doing quite well. You fit into the band very, very, very well. Martin in the background.
Oh, thank you.
Bored, you were everywhere. What's going on? You must be.
It's great. It is. It's a lot of fun. It's a high energy show, and I definitely got that okay from Wolf before I was like, "Hey, get out of the way, man. I'm here now." I don't do that, man. I can read the room, and it was like, no, get out, do it. So it's Wolf, Mark, and I up front, and Uva, Christopher, and Martin in the back, and so it's we've got the upstage held down, we got downstage held down, so it's a lot of fun. High energy show, extremely challenging, but it's just so much fun on and off stage. Everybody, it's a good unit, band and crew.
Yeah, definitely. So the first part of the tour is over. You're heading back out on the road soon. Where are you heading to soon?
Thursday. We start in Nashville. Is the first show of our North American tour. Yep. We start in Nashville on Thursday, and then we go all the way through the very end of October. So we're going all the way through up into Canada for only one show, but most of the US.
Oh, awesome. What's next? You've had an amazing career. You've tremendous experiences, which any musician can only dream of. What's next in the life of Phil Shouse?
I've actually started a non-alcoholic beverage company, and one of my partners is in Melbourne, actually.
Okay.
And so I'm going to hopefully be going down there for more business stuff. I have a partner in Melbourne and a partner in Sweden, Stockholm, and the company's called Red Herring. And in Australia, they're being analyzed right now to ship to me to approve. We've got samples of a whiskey, gin, tequila, and a vodka, as well as 2 beers, all non-alcoholic stuff. So I'm dying for that stuff to get sent to me so I can try them. But hopefully, if all goes well, within 12 months or sometime in 2023, we'll have stuff on the shelves and ready to purchase in restaurants and mail order as well.
All right, that's one to look out for, Red Herring. But mate, You are a bit of an astute businessman as well. Tell me about Mutt Merch.
Mutt Merch was a business I ran for 8 years. I'm actually in the market for a buyer. So if anybody wants to buy a dog and music themed clothing company or merch company, you just contact Jock and they'll put in touch with me. But yeah, I ran that for 8 years. It became to be too much because it was kind of just me, and it was a lot to do. The merch business, the drop ship, mail order, that kind of thing is pretty tough when you're gone 4 months a year. But it was a lot of fun. I took dogs and music and combined them, and we had T-shirts like Bones and Noses, Grateful Dane, Aerosmith, Muttley Chew, Def Shepherd, things like that. So it was a lot of fun, and I pushed it as long as I could push it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Mate, that sounds like a great retail. Retail's changed so much, isn't it? People are doing this more and more, and you see shops in city centres not open anymore because the world is just going crazy on online shopping. And Mutt Merch viewers, if you're out there looking for a change in career, get in contact with me, and we'll make it happen, Phil.
Please do. I've got inventory and a bunch of intellectual property for sale, so we'll talk.
Awesome. Look, one final question. I know that you're busting to get out there to go and practice and ready for this North American tour, but one final question. If you were to give advice to any young musician out there, what would that advice be?
It would be play with as many different people as you possibly can.
Yeah.
Take the gig.
Nice. Nice. You can only learn so much, even if you take one or two things from each different musician that you come across, your life is enriched.
Absolutely. And everybody that you play with, you're introduced to a new group. So you're now in all of those people's contact list. And then
Yeah.
you got into this person's contact list. So it's a way of networking, and it's a way just to get your name and talent and image out there. And the more chances you have to do that, the better off you're going to be.
Great advice, Phil. Really appreciate your time. Looking forward to seeing Accept back on the road, hopefully down here in Australia in 2023.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Martin, apologies for any bass lessons that now Phil is coming after you for. Look out, Martin. Anyway, Phil, it's been an absolute.
I only play with a pick, so he's got a lot to go.
Very good. Anyway, mate, thank you so much for joining the Rock House. Take care, and hopefully see you on the road soon.
Thank you, Jock. Thanks for having me. That was a lot of fun.
Thanks, mate. Take care.